I once stood in the eternal light before the throne of the Most High among the choirs of angels, in a universe where the concepts of sin or punishment had never existed. But now I am an exile, no longer called holy, no longer permitted to gaze upon that light. I am one of the Watcher's angels sent down to observe humanity, not to rule, but to guard, protect, and guide. Our mission was sacred, born of a divine love between heaven and mankind. And yet it was that very love that led to our fall. You've heard of the fallen angels, haven't you? The proud ones who defied heaven, the souls cast down. But that is the version mankind was told, a simplified tale molded for comfort. The truth lies buried in forbidden texts, ancient writings never meant to be spoken aloud. I don't tell this to justify. I speak because time is racing toward its end. What was hidden will rise like a relic from the ocean of memory. We did not rebel to seize the throne. We fell because we loved beyond what was permitted. We did not crave godhood. We only wanted to be understood, to feel, to step into the human story, not as observers, but as family. But such desires in heaven's eyes were unforgivable, and the price was the abyss, the withdrawal of the light and the title of fallen. I no longer beg to return. I only ask to be heard. Because in the wind, in the questioning gaze of those who doubt, I've sensed the time has come for mankind to know the truth about us, about a fall that began not with hatred, but with a love that never had a name. I once soared through skies where the light never faded, where every motion was a harmonious song. There was no chaos, no time, only eternity and obedience. I was born of a divine command called a Watcher Guardian, not to judge, not to rule, but to observe humanity, to walk beside them in their earliest stumbling steps. We had no desires, no hunger, no pain, but we also had no freedom. Then our task began. We descended into the untouched atmosphere, watching the first humans etch shapes on stone-built camps by the stream, lift their eyes to the stars, unaware that other eyes watched them from beyond. I do not know when the beginning began, only that one day I stopped merely observing. I saw her a woman living in the wild with curious and daring eyes. She knew nothing of perfection, but lived with her whole heart. Her smile was not divine light, but it was warm like fire on a winter night. And I, one who had never known stirring, felt unrest. For the first time, I did not come to destroy, I came to protect. But it was love that became my downfall. I was not alone. Many of my brethren too were awakened by the beauty of humanity. Not a beauty born of supernatural radiance, but of life, of longing, of quiet, deep imperfection. We began to teach them how to use fire, how to farm, how to count time, how to heal. The more we helped, the more we wanted to stay. Their world, though clumsy, held something. Heaven never had choice, and in choosing we stepped away from heaven. Love, freedom, desire, things never programmed within us, wove into our very light and broke us apart. Our fall did not come from rebellion. It came from the longing to be understood, to feel, to love as they did. And in that moment I realized, even light has limits, and darkness can begin from something that once seemed innocent. Back then, when humans still lived in thatched huts, when night was an unnamed terror and storms were called by trembling, they had no calendar to count the days, no fire to warm them, no idea what to plant, what to eat, or why they should live. They wandered in the fog of instinct like lost children in the primeval forest of creation. And from heaven a command was given. We, the Watchers, were chosen from among the heavenly host, not to rule, but to guard. To walk with humanity like elder brothers, silently lighting the way for their younger kin. Our mission was to observe, not to interfere, to watch every tentative step of mankind without disrupting God's divine plan. We descended upon Mount Hermon, a towering peak in a land yet unmapped, where the mist hung like curtains, hiding eternal mysteries. There we stood, 200 angels, some who carried fire, some who kept memory, some who marked time, some who guarded morality. And there the first covenant was made, not in light, but in blood. Semjaza, our leader, was the first to speak. In his eyes I saw something heaven had never known, the resolve of independent will. "Let us all swear together," he said, "that none of us will turn back once we begin. If one falls, we all fall." One by one we stepped forward, dripping our own blood upon the earth, sealing a vow that could never be undone. Azazel, unlike Semjaza, spoke little, but his eyes always watched humanity as if staring into a forbidden mystery. Later he would be the one to teach mankind about metal, about war, about ornaments and seduction. But then he was silent, so silent he seemed harmless, and I, the one who now speaks to you, stood in that circle of oath. I did not know those drops of blood would bind my soul to a destiny I could never escape. I still remember how the ground beneath us trembled when the vow was sealed, as if creation itself shuddered. From that moment, we were no longer merely watchers. We chose to stand in between heaven and earth, between obedience and freedom. Time is not counted in the angelic realm, but on earth seasons changed. The newborns of that era had grown into men and women, their eyes burning with curiosity. And in their gaze, we beings made of light began to see ourselves reflected, no longer distant, invisible watchers. We became objects of reverence and eventually of longing. I don't know when the first moment came, perhaps when a young woman reached out and touched my hand as if touching something sacred she should never approach. Or perhaps it was when I saw Azazel looking at the women of mankind as if searching in them for something lost within himself. We were taught to love mankind as guardians, but that love changed into something else, a yearning with no name. Not mere lust, but admiration, a desire to become one with them, to live their life. Semjaza was the first to confess he had fallen in love with a mortal woman, and he was not alone. Then came Azazel. He needed no confession. He acted. In the dark of ancient mountain caves, he gave mankind secrets meant only for heaven, how to forge metal-shaped blades, cast spears. He didn't stop there. He taught them to craft jewelry of gold and gems, things that made eyes glow and hearts crave. Art became a tool of seduction. Beauty became power, and power, as always, gave birth to destruction. I watched small villages grow into fortresses, simple people become warriors. And in the silence I wondered, were we protecting them? or leading them down a path from which there was no return. Semjaza called it sharing knowledge. Azazel called it freedom. But I, deep within a soul already cracking, could only whisper one truth. We had not merely intervened, we had disrupted the divine order of heaven. We sowed our seed into the earth, and now mankind had to reap the consequence. From forbidden blood, hybrids were born. No longer human, no longer angel. Gigantic beings, tall as stone towers, roaring like thunder, their footsteps cracking the earth. We called them Nephilim. But the name could never capture the horror they brought. At first we looked upon them like marvels. We've given the world something it's never had, Semjaza once declared, pride blazing in his eyes. But that pride quickly turned into terror. The Nephilim did not merely live. They ruled, they plundered, destroyed, killed without care for age or virtue. They saw humans as insects, things to torment, to shatter, to crush. They were ravenous, but not for flesh, for absolute dominion. We did not know what we had created until the world descended into chaos. I remember that first night when cries for help echoed from the hills, blood flowed like streams, and mankind no longer looked to the sky to pray, but to ask why. We began to fracture. Some, like Barakil and Sariel, collapsed in remorse, begging heaven for forgiveness. But Azazel, he went the other way. "What is sin if not freedom in chains?" he said, and continued teaching forbidden things, the art of war, enchantments, seduction. A storm raged inside me. I was created to preserve, to instruct, not to unleash disaster. But I had loved so deeply, I forgot, not all love brings light. Some love is born in a single glance and ends in a flame that consumes the world. We once stood in heaven's light, now we bow in the shadows we made ourselves. In the midst of chaos, one was chosen, a man, but with a gaze as if he had once stood before the throne of God. His name was Enoch, and when he stepped forward, all space grew still, not from power, but from stillness. A stillness so strange, it was as if in the cries of the world he carried a silence from another realm. He came with no sword, no miracle, no thunder, but his words struck like lightning to the soul God has seen. And he has decided, he said, his voice deep, like prophecy from the beginning of time. The waters will cover the face of the earth. All life will be swept away, save what God holds in the palm of his hand. I did not believe, or rather, I did not want to. I knelt before him. I looked past him to the high heavens where I once flew in the light. I pleaded. I begged. Please give them one more chance. Let us make it right. Do not punish mankind for our sins. But heaven was silent, a silence that chilled the soul. No more wings fluttering, no more holy light piercing the layers of sky. Only emptiness. And in that emptiness, I understood. It was all decided. Enoch was taken up into the heavens. I saw him rise among the blazing angels, not as a mere man, but as a living prophet, as a bridge between two worlds, soon to be severed forever. The Lord would do what he once did, cleanse the earth with a flood. But this time, it would not be only for mankind's sin. This time, it would be because of us. Those who were once made of light, now turned into darkness. And I knew no matter how I screamed until my voice shattered, no matter how far I fell into remorse, I could never reclaim that first moment. The moment we chose to trade eternity for a mortal gaze. I do not know how long it has been since Enoch rose into the heavens. No one speaks anymore. No one hopes. We simply wait. And then it came, not a flood, not thunder, but a white light so pure it scorched everything unclean in its path. A gate opened in the realm of the divine, not to welcome, but to summon. We, the watchers once sent to guard mankind, were now called back, not in glory, but as the accused. On the seventh, heaven, where God's light burns like an unquenchable fire, a heavenly tribunal was established. I cannot describe that place in mortal words. The cherubim stood on either side, faces veiled by wings, unable to look. The seraphim blazed like whirling tongues of fire. At the center was a throne of radiant light, not blinding but piercing, a light that saw through the soul, and we were bound, not by rope, but by chains of light. The very light we were once made of now become shackles. It did not bind only our hands, but weighed down our will, our memory, the very core of our once divine essence. We were called by name, one by one. Semjaza, our leader, bowed his head low, unable to look up at the light. Azazel, the one who taught mankind the ways of war, was judged first. As for me, I could only kneel, praying the gaze of the Most High would rest on me once more, even if only in judgment. And he did look, but not with hatred, with a deep and immeasurable sorrow. I realized then he did not want to punish. But light cannot coexist with darkness. The verdict echoed not with sound, but as a trembling within the soul. You have shattered the boundary between heaven and earth. You have led mankind toward destruction. You are no longer watchers. And with that decree, each of us was cast down. Tartarus, the abyss where no light reaches, opened like a starving soul. Not a place of death, but of separation, of emptiness. I remember that moment, when heaven's light withdrew from me, not as physical pain, but as the soul's marrow being torn away, as if ripped from the memory of what I once was. I once stood beside the throne of God. I was once called the morning light, who guards the world. And now I am a prisoner in the abyss, not for hatred, but for a love that strayed. I am imprisoned in darkness. No time, no space, only memory remains. There is no sun, no stars, no direction. Tartarus is unlike anything humans can imagine. It is not a flame like hell, nor frozen like void. It is an absolute emptiness, where every concept of existence is crushed by stillness. I do not know how long I have been here. A day, a century, thousands of years. Time does not pass. It lingers like a tear frozen in the unseen. And in that darkness, I live by memory. I remember. The first light. Not a physical light, but the light of existence. The light that soaked into every sacred nerve as I was created. I remember the songs of the seraphim. A melody humankind will never hear. Not because it is hidden, but because no human ear could contain it. They do not sing with sound. They sing with the vibrations of holiness. When they raised that song, even the stars seemed to pause. And I I once sang with them. I once circled the throne of God, round after round, never weary, never doubting. Each circle a blessing, each circle a step deeper into the light. I remember one more thing. A voice not loud, not threatening, not thunder, but soft, like breath, as if light itself whispered. It was his voice, not words but meaning poured into the soul. He did not command, he did not persuade. He simply was, and his presence alone made me bow in joy. Now in Tartarus, all that is but an echo. No more light, no more song, no more whispers, only me and the one I once was, a watcher, a child of light, a fallen one. I no longer know what time is. In Tartarus there is no dusk and no dawn, only unseen thick darkness clinging to me like a cloak of forgetting. No footsteps, no calling voice, only silence, and memories not yet faded. But in that darkness, I began to dream, not sweet dreams, not nightmares, but visions, strange and radiant, like shards of light trying to enter the cracks of my dried-out soul. I saw mankind after the great flood, children of dust trembling as they emerged from mud and ash. I saw them learn to breathe, to cry, to believe, to betray, and to crown themselves as gods. I saw kingdoms rise and fall. I saw fields soaked in blood. I saw temples built with tears. I saw law become chains. I saw mankind worship their own carved image and forget the one who shaped them with holy breath. And then through it all, I saw a light. At first it was tiny, like a flicker in a storm, but slowly it spread, igniting, glowing like dawn after 1,000 years of night. This light did not blind or dominate, but was soft like a lullaby, deep like the abyss that holds me, and I knew immediately, though it was too late. He did not come as a warrior with a flaming sword. He did not arrive on a chariot of fire like I once dreamed messengers of power would. He came among mankind with flesh, with tears, with wounds. He was the light, the word, the savior. And in that moment, I wept, not with tears, but with cries no one hears, with pain no time could ease, because I knew I had once lived in that light. I had once stood near him, but now I could only watch from afar like a stranger before heaven's gate. He will bring the light. I can never touch again, I whispered, and no voice answered. Because this is the destiny of one who abandoned the light to gain a moment of freedom, and pay with eternal separation. There is one thing I once thought I understood. The righteousness of God is absolute. But now, in this bottomless abyss, I begin to ask not about him, but about us, those who were once called guardians of the light. That day, we did not scream rebellion. We raised no banners, declared no war. None of us said, "We will replace God." None lifted a sword against heaven's hosts. We only loved. We only taught. We only gave mankind what we believed was good, the light of knowledge, of choice, of freedom. So why? I remember the eyes of Semjaza when judgment was pronounced. Not the eyes of arrogance, but of a child who could not understand why the Father spoke no word of forgiveness. We were not cast out for defiance. We were cast out for not understanding limits, for not seeing that good intentions are not the same as obedience, that some things which feel like love disrupt the order of heaven. I once believed holiness was eternal light, unchanging, unyielding. But the holiness of God is not only justice, it is mystery, it is silence, it is greatness so vast. Not all can comprehend. Now imprisoned between nothingness and memory, I have only one thing left to hold on to. A question that repeats like the last heartbeat in a soul drained of hope. Could his mercy reach even this deep? Could it be even once he might look upon us, the ones who once guarded the flame with compassion? I do not ask to return to heaven. I do not ask to be cleansed of sin. I only pray that he has not forgotten me, that among the infinite righteous souls among the hosts still circling his throne, there remains one memory of me, a fallen one who still loves him. In the most broken way, I do not seek forgiveness. I know well some paths once walked leave no return. Some doors once shut by our prideful hands cannot be opened by a single cry too late. I was one who once stood in the light. I heard the seraphim's song. I knelt before the blazing throne of the Most High. I was once called by a holy name, once bore the mission of guarding the order of the cosmos. But now all that remains is a burning memory and a warning I must speak, though I have no right to be heard. I do not say this to earn sympathy. I do not justify. I only want you to know, you mankind, that the light you carry is the very thing I lost. No, not the sunlight or the glow of your cities. I speak of sacred light, the light of a soul still connected to God. It is the light that makes you feel sorrow when you sin. It is the light that brings tears when you hear a holy hymn. It is the light that keeps you believing when all around you is darkness. I once thought I could never lose it, that angels could not stray, that knowledge would keep me from wrong. But no one is immune to freedom, and freedom without humility is a double-edged sword. I once believed that we, the Watchers, were doing right, helping mankind grow stronger, wiser, more advanced. But I did not see that behind knowledge was pride, behind love was possession, behind the light was the shadow growing within me. It wasn't a sudden fall. It was a long, slow drift, step by step, with seemingly noble reasons, until I could no longer hear the voice of the Most High. And then I lost that light. Forever. I do not tell this for pity. I need no one to weep for me. I only want you who still live in that light, not to take it for granted. Do not throw it away for sweet invitations. Do not trade that light for power, fame, pleasure, or control. Because I am the living proof that you may think you are rising, but you are falling very slowly, but very deeply. And when you realize it, it may already be too late. Do not be like me. Hold on to that light. Hold on to that light at all costs. I look upon your world today, and I tremble. I no longer have wings to soar across the heavens. No light touches my forehead anymore, but I can still see. From the depths of darkness, I still see. The world you believe is new, I recognize as one that has existed before in another form, under another name, and in every step you call progress. I see the footprints of us, the watchers etched beneath. The Nephilim are dead. The great flood swept away those towering, terrifying bodies, but their spirits, their violence, their bloodlust, their pride, their arrogance still live on. They no longer wear flesh, but they have become ideas, regimes, systems, powers. I've heard mortals praise victories born from the annihilation of nations. I've seen the fiery gaze of a child trained to kill. I've heard machines roar like beasts as they conquer lands, drain rivers, split oceans. And in all of it, I see our shadows, and I shudder. Azazel taught mankind how to forge weapons, gifted them with the arts of seduction, deception, and illusion. We thought we were elevating humanity, but in truth, we were pulling them into the abyss from which even we could not escape. We didn't just intervene, we altered the entire course of a world. And now the seeds we planted have taken root across the earth. You call it progress. But I, one who has seen the primordial light, heard the first songs of the seraphim. I know it's a fracture in the soul of creation. I once believed the darkness I was imprisoned in was the darkest there could be, but now I see something far more terrifying. Darkness in the midst of light, a world that gleams on the outside, but inside the heart is turning to stone. And when I saw this, I whispered, Lord, are we walking the same path again? You still have freedom. You still have a way back to the light. But I do not. I do not say this to stir pity. I am no longer an angel to be admired, and I do not seek to cleanse my name in heaven's light I speak. Only so you may know the light you carry now, that fragile freedom is more precious than you can imagine. I was once a watcher sent to observe, to protect, to guard mankind from the wildness of their own nature. But I didn't just observe, I chose to step in. I let my heart be moved by the fragile beauty of a creature made from dust. I loved them, and I fell. I know full well that with that choice I closed the door to the light forever. But you are not like me. You still have a road back. You can still fall and rise. You can still doubt and then believe. You can still hear the voice of God, the voice that now only visits me in broken dreams. I once thought humans were weak and impulsive, but I was wrong. In that weakness, you carry a gift that millions of angels no longer have grace. A gift that I, a prisoner in darkness, will never touch again. I have witnessed from the depths where I am chained a human soul weep in the dark, whisper God's name, and be forgiven. I have seen those lost in sin be lifted by a love I once rejected. I trembled when I realized God had never forsaken mankind, even when I, an angel, was no longer called by him. Do you understand what you still carry, what I lost forever? Freedom, hope, and the invitation to return to the light. Do not let it be wasted. Do not turn the gift you were given into the price I paid. You still have time. I do not use every moment to walk toward the light before it too closes, as it did for me. If you still hear his voice, listen. There are things once lost that never return. I once heard that voice, not with my ears, but through a stirring of the soul. A sound that made no waves, but gave life. A word with no letters, but carved itself into being. The whisper of the Most High. I was once wrapped in light that did not burn, a light not from the sun, but from the very essence of holiness. In that light, I needed no eyes to see, no ears to hear. Everything was in unity. The songs of the seraphim, the pulse of light, the winds scented with eternity, I remember. The flame that did not consume yet burned brightly, spreading silently through the unseen. The light that didn't scorch but pierced every sin. The sound like breath in the night wind, brushing past, then fading, leaving behind a silence more haunting than screams. But all of it has faded. No more songs, no more sacred breath. No light surrounding me. Only silence so deep I no longer know who I am. Only that I once belonged to a place I no longer belong. And I in this abyss still cling to one hope, that you who still dwell in the light, will not lose it as I did. If today your heart aches at a single verse of Scripture, if your eyes blur at a whispered prayer, if your soul quiets when the night falls, then you are still hearing His call. Even if only for a moment, even if only as a whisper, do not ignore it. Do not wait until all sound has vanished, and you are left with only the memory of something sacred that once was. I do not ask for salvation. I am only the one who tells the story. But if I may leave you with one truth, it is this. Listen. Before the light falls silent, I am a lost angel. But you are not. I tell this not for pity, not for pardon. I tell this for something deeper that you may remember. There are paths which once walked never lead back. I am proof of that. The remaining echo of a light that has faded. I once stood near the throne of the eternal. Once sang with the seraphim in eternal harmony. Once knew the primordial light, where no darkness dwelled, no time passed. But I lost it all, not in a moment of rebellion, but in a string of small choices, each seemingly harmless, that led me slowly away from the light, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. Today, you still have freedom. You can still choose. And that is why I whisper to you from the dark, because the fall doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it comes with a gentle whisper, with small compromises, with turning away from what is right in a moment of weakness. My story, though it feels like a distant past, is the reality of mankind today. A world that has forgotten how to listen. A world that treats the light lightly and calls darkness freedom. A world living among the consequences of the Nephilim without realizing it. Pride, violence, division, and spiritual aimlessness. I cannot return, but you still can. I cannot pray anymore, but you still can. I have lost the voice to sing for heaven, but you still have a heart that trembles before the sacred. If you still hear the knock, even faintly, do not delay. Do not wait until all sound fades. As I once did, I am a lost angel, but you are not. And there is still time if you choose to walk toward the light. I no longer dream, I no longer see heaven, I no longer hear the first song that echoed through creation, but I remember every detail, every color, every sound. And that memory is a punishment more painful than any chain, for nothing hurts more than having touched the light and losing it forever. I tell you this story not to end a tale, but to begin a question. If you were to see the light, Would you have the courage to never leave it? Not everyone gets a second chance. Not every lost soul is redeemed, and the light does not always wait. Sometimes one wrong turn is enough to lose the way forever. You are living at the crossroads, where ancient shadows still whisper, where fractures in the human soul have yet to heal. But you still have a choice. I have no prayers left. But you can still plead, I have no right to decide. But you can still choose each day to live for what is right, or trade the light for glittering things that vanish like mist. And when you turn from the noise in the deep stillness of your soul, you may hear the invitation from somewhere far away, or perhaps from me, the forgotten one who once stood near the light. But the story isn't over. There are chapters yet unopened, fragments yet to be gathered, the final words of Enoch, the dream of the Nephilim children of chaos, and finally the deepest prison of Tartarus, where even souls cast no shadow. We will return, not for drama, not for conclusion, but to walk with you into the deepest part of what was buried. Remember this: if you have ever seen the light, will you be brave enough never to leave it? Amen.